New Jeans has been through a lot as a group, and currently, as we speak, they no longer look like the group that they once were when I was a teenager. I am now 4 years older than when I was when I first heard Ditto, and I'm not gonna lie, I loved their discography when I was younger. I enjoyed so many songs like OMG, Attention, Hype Boy. Like, those were songs that shaped my, really shaped the end of 2022 for me. But there was one song that kind of like stood alone in their discography because it really stood out to me. Because their music reminded me generally of escapism and various shades of pink with sparkles and glitter, and it was just so much fun to listen to. And I mostly liked every song, barring a few, and if you know what I'm hinting at, you would understand that I am talking about Cookie. Anyways, going back to Ditto. Ditto sounded like a cold winter morning, but it also sounded like staring off at a blank wall and thinking about everything you have done in your life. And Ditto sounded like nostalgia, but the kind that makes you want to cry, the kind that makes you want to seek warmth because that warmth is no longer there. And maybe that warmth was an illusion, but you don't really actually know. You know? So, Ditto was always a song that stood out to me because it made me feel introspective. It made 17-year-old me genuinely think about growing up. And at this point in my K-pop journey, New Jeans was one of the first of many groups that I was introduced to. And even though K-pop was another teenage hobby, K-pop itself never really made me stop in my tracks to think quite deeply. But Ditto did. And in fact, it made me sit down and think that I was not going to be 17 forever. I feel like some of the best K-pop YouTube commentary and analysis videos were done on Ditto. Ditto is such a masterpiece, whether people talk about the lyrics, the way the girls sing it, the production, the music video itself, and the way it was filmed. I feel like everyone on YouTube has covered Ditto and has done so much justice to the song that I feel like I don't really have a better analysis up my sleeve to be able to provide any justice or any new perspectives to looking at this song. So honestly, while I was writing this script, I was shedding like a few tears because at this point I avoided to listening to Ditto for a couple of years. And I stopped listening to New Jeans when the entire controversy started happening back in 2024. And I really stopped listening to New Jeans entirely, but I remember a couple of months ago, I missed their music quite dearly. I missed the nostalgia, I missed the comfort that they provided, and I remember I went on SoundCloud and I listened to the Get Up EP, and I just felt so much joy that I don't think I experienced for a while in K-pop. Aside from NMIX, I didn't really feel the joy that I did until I listened to the Get Up EP, and I think I did listen to some of their debut project, but I still avoided Ditto because that song held such a special place in my heart, and I don't think I was ready to listen to it again, and I kind of avoided it because I don't know, I just felt like it was too special, and it was my favorite song from the group, and I feel like it would hurt too much if I were to listen to it. And I know I might sound overly dramatic or like way too emotional to be to treat this song like it's some kind of like piece of classic literature, but I mean, this is what art does to people. Like, people value art quite differently, and Ditto affected me in ways that I can't explain. So, eventually, a couple days ago, I listened to Ditto for the first time in a couple of years. And I would like to say that I got chills, and by the end of the song, I was in tears. I had missed this because I feel like it unlocked something that I hadn't felt in a long time, and that was melancholy. I remember when I made my nostalgia video a couple months back, and I was kind of scared to talk about Ditto or New Jeans, but I feel like I'm in a comfortable space to do so, because I will admit, I miss their music, and I miss the way their music was the soundtrack to the last portion of my teen years. I never really truly had the heart to sit down and listen to their music releases in 2024 because I felt this immense sadness. I felt that it was a sound of a time that might not ever return. And I don't really think of myself as a bunny. I just really enjoy the music, and I don't really engage in fan content, honestly, but that being said, I think the reason why I have an attachment to their music is because I, at that point in 2022, had never seen a girl group be in close proximity to my age, ever. Like, I could be classmates with some of these girls. And of course, I had not discovered NMIX yet, so I'm just gonna put it out there that that was a very early phase in my K-pop journey, and it was very exciting, and that really meant a lot to me. So, that being said, you must be wondering, I said that Ditto is my favorite New Jeans song, but I'm not really analyzing it. So what's really the purpose of this video? Well, again, I've mentioned that I don't really think I can do justice or provide any profound commentary about the filmography. No, it would be the cinematography. That's the right word. Or talking about the production. I don't think I would be able to do justice to that. So I wanted to talk about Ditto and my relationship with it. And I think the one way I can do right by Ditto is talking about how Ditto unknowingly foreshadowed my relationship with their music and how it made me grow up as a person. I think Ditto, as a song itself, when you read it lyrically, it's about having a crush on somebody and wanting them to fully commit to you. And the way the girls sing it, especially the intro and the outro, it really cemented this song to be a very iconic piece of work. The intro, in my opinion, immediately takes you back into a moment into your life, and personally for me, the intro represents remembering something bittersweet. I think the lyrics and the concept of the song itself is sweet, and even if you don't really count it as a song that is talking about growing up, I think it discusses a topic that has a huge part in a lot of people's childhoods, and especially when they were teenagers, and having crushes and confessing to people have ties to growing up, in my opinion. I think this song might not explicitly talk about growing up, but I do think there is worth in discussing, and I think there is value in acknowledging that wanting someone to commit to you and stepping up to admit that you have feelings for somebody shows a part of growing up that might not be acknowledged. Mostly because when you're a teenager, the idea of romance and falling in love is often laughed at because, well, you're seen as immature. It takes courage and a level of growing up to be able to talk about how you feel about someone romantically, because you're still discovering yourself as a teenager and yourself as a person. And it probably took some level of reflection to be able to realize you have feelings or even discuss those feelings. But in my opinion, the music video puts the element of growing up into full effect, and having two separate music videos really hammers home the point. And, I'm not going to analyze the videos because I feel like other people have done a good job at it, so I don't want to be redundant. When I first saw the main character as an adult brushing off her old high school relics and putting on a VHS tape, I think, to watch her memories from high school and reminisce about the friendships she had, I kind of sat there for a moment and realized for the first time in 4 years that I finally related to this character, because that was exactly what I was doing. I was reminiscing my own memories about the relationships I had with people, about the hobbies I had during that time, and the relationship with the artists that I listened to in that moment and in that period of my life. And I was reminiscing about my relationship with New Jeans, and I was getting a blast from the past. I got memories when I first saw their music, and especially the first time I saw the music videos for Ditto, and I thought the main character being shy around her crush was so cute. But now I look back as kind of like an older sister, and I kind of smile from a distance about how awkward your little sister is around her crush. And, watching her drop the camera and move on with reality made me feel protective and yet so proud of her for taking steps to truly do an act of self-care, even if the idea of New Jeans disappearing from her mind was worth being able to live in reality. And I think after you have grown up and have done a lot of reflection and have done a lot of just experiencing life, when you look back at the Ditto music videos, you kind of realize you have become the older version of the main character. When you experience life and you let yourself grow up, you kind of, I don't know, I think you become the grown-up version of the girl with the camera. Because a few years ago, I would be completely honest, I never really even considered the main character, the older version of her, to be significant in any way. But I was wrong. I was quite wrong. In fact, I became her very quickly because I had to do a lot of growing up, as one does. When you experience life and you learn so much, you don't realize how fast life goes by, honestly. I think when she goes to see New Jeans dancing, and she watches them from a distance, and she decides to leave them and kind of drop her camera and move on with reality, I had the sad realization that that's what I did back in 2024. I saw that things were getting bad for the group, and I decided that I needed to move on, and I stopped listening to the group entirely. And they kind of became a thing in the past for me, a relic from my childhood in a sense. Because in all honesty, I don't think I would have been able to healthily keep up with whatever was going on without it hurting me mentally, in a sense. When she started watching those music videos as a grown-up, New Jeans suddenly burst down the door and, they find a comfortable spot. And it's almost like she was waiting for them and she actually made room for them. And I think that's what kind of happened to me. I always had a soft spot for the group, and their music was an important part of my life. And after I did some growing up, I looked back and I kind of welcomed the memories of the group with open arms. I think when I talk about New Jeans, I often think about the fact that I'm potentially reminiscing about the group or just mourning them. And I feel like sometimes it's both. Sometimes I enjoy remembering the times that I enjoyed listening to them and the core memories I made listening to their music. But I also feel sad that those memories are in a time capsule and everything feels so much more different and nothing can really truly go back. Especially when a member is no longer part of the group. I don't really regret stepping away from New Jeans because I needed to drop the camera and I needed to live in reality because I had my own development to attend to. And if I was extremely parasocial, I think it would have hurt my mental health. I think I would have not felt good listening to New Jeans if I had kept listening to them even during everything. I think gaining life experience truly helped me to be able to look back at New Jeans in a more healthy way and be able to conceptualize how I view my relationship with music. I think Ditto was surprisingly very foundational because it did help the way I view art and especially lyricism and storytelling in K-pop. And it really changed because of Ditto. And in this weird way, Ditto kind of really helped with the foundation of this channel. I think in a strange way, Ditto helped me to grow up because it told me that I needed to experience life. I needed to grow up. And maybe I needed to experience life to be able to experience the great pleasure of staring into a wall and thinking about everything that I've done while listening to Ditto. Maybe I needed to grow up a little bit to be able to understand and to experience Ditto in a full circle. Maybe I needed to listen to Ditto in order to be able to appreciate how far I've come and how much far I need to go.